But yeah, this is going to be a 30-page, I think it's 30 slides, I'm not entirely sure the exact amount, but about a 30-page presentation going over how I got the sub 2, my history behind going for it, my future plans for the category, which, spoiler alert, are not going to be very much. I do not plan to do this fight ever again. But yeah, we're going to go over everything, and hopefully you guys will kind of learn why this fight took so long, why it was so unlikely, and the mechanics behind everything. So hopefully you guys enjoy. This is going to be my version of a TED Talk. It's a SALT Talk, I guess. But let's get it started. So, Mike Tyson. If you guys ever hear me talking about phases on Mike Tyson, you don't know what those are, we're going to start with the real basics here and go over what a phase is. So to beat Mike Tyson in Punch-Out, you need to knock him down 3 times. 3 knockdowns in 1 round is a TKO. And when we say a phase, that is referring to everything up until a knockdown. So if I talk about phase 1, that's up until the first knockdown. Phase 2 is up to the second knockdown. Phase 3 is up till the TKO. So the goal, when you're going for a sub 2, you want to get a 52-second phase 1, a 124 phase 2, and then a 159 phase 3. So hopefully that all makes sense. When we're talking about the different phases, it is just basically each knockdown is like a phase. Punching. So how does punching work on Mike Tyson? Well, Tyson's going to throw uppercuts for the first minute and a half of the fight. Those are the ones that'll knock you down in one punch, the really strong ones, the ones that are kind of infamous that everyone remembers if they tried fighting Tyson. And then after a minute 30, he switches to hooks. The hooks deal less damage, and I guess it's coincidental, or maybe not. You also cannot damage Tyson as much when he throws hooks. Now, pretty much everything you do on this fight is frame perfect, or at least you're trying to make it frame perfect. You have 1/60th of a second to time your punches. And the way it works is when Tyson's throwing uppercuts, you want to counter him once. This can be, you just buffer it as soon as you can. And then you delay the second punch of every sequence until the last possible frame. It is very precise. It sounds incredibly hard, but if you practice it a ton, it's not quite as hard as you would think. So here's what the frame perfect uppercuts look like. And keep in mind, it's the delayed second punch in each sequence that is frame perfect. So that's frame perfect. That's frame perfect. That's frame perfect. And you have a 60th of a second on each of those. Frame perfect hooks. These are harder than the frame perfect uppercuts. Significantly harder, I would say. You have to delay the first punch, so not the second punch this time. You only throw 1 punch at a time, and you delay it until the last possible frame. So I'll kind of show you what these look like. Frame perfect, frame perfect, frame perfect. So you get the idea. So this whole fight, you're pretty much just doing non-stop frame perfect punches. So in phase 1, you're doing 9 frame perfect uppercuts. In phase 2, you're doing 5 frame perfect uppercuts. And then in phase 3, you're doing 1 frame perfect uppercut, which is known as the phase 3 uppercut. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then after the 1 uppercut, you do 6 frame perfect hooks. And just keep in mind, the frame perfect hooks are quite a bit harder than the uppercuts. Advance, there we go. Okay, dodging. So ideally, you're also going to be dodging frame perfectly. You have a little more leeway with the dodging. I'll kind of explain why. So optimally, you're going to be cutting these dodges as tightly as you possibly can. And I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not, but you see over here on the right how the top 2 pictures, the one on the left, you have Mac barely out of the way of the uppercut, and then the next one, he's come back to center from his dodge, and then Tyson's uppercut came through. So if Little Mac dodged 1 frame earlier here, then this would hit him and he'd get knocked down. But instead, it's a frame perfect dodge, so the instant this uppercut is out of the way, we're snapping back to center. You want to do as many of those frame perfect dodges as you possibly can. Even better than a frame perfect dodge, though, is a frame perfect duck. Frame perfect duck, it looks like this. Ducking out of the way 1 frame, then the next frame, once the uppercut's out of the way, you snap back to center. A frame perfect duck saves 1 frame over a frame perfect dodge. It's quite a bit harder, well, I don't know about quite a bit harder, but a decent bit harder than a frame perfect dodge. But for various reasons, some of them it's slower, some of them it's harder, some of them, there's a few reasons why, but Some uppercuts we choose to dodge, and some of them we choose to duck. The goal is every single one is a frame-perfect dodge or a duck. But that's not really realistic because you do have a little bit of leeway. It's not like with the uppercuts and hooks, where if you're a frame early or a frame late, you lose a ton of time. With the dodge and the duck, if you're a frame late, you lose 1 frame. So it's not that big of a deal. You have a little bit of leeway. So the idea is you want to bleed as few frames as possible on these dodges and ducks. I don't think it's realistic to be frame perfect on all of them. If you give someone enough attempts, they eventually probably could. But yeah, you want to be as close to frame perfect as you can. Keep in mind though, all this stuff only applies on the uppercuts. The hooks, it doesn't really matter when you dodge because you're just doing 1 frame perfect punch. The frame perfect timing is tied to when he throws the punch. It doesn't matter when you dodge. So all this stuff only applies to the uppercuts. Okay, RNG. This is where the fight starts to get crazy because the frame perfect stuff, as hard as it sounds, is actually not that hard. Like I could do the frame perfect punches correctly like a third of the time probably. The RNG is where it gets really tough. So here's the deal, guys. After almost every uppercut that Tyson throws, there's a few exceptions, but almost every uppercut, he has a 50-50 chance of delaying. 50-50 on almost every single one. And there's a few uppercuts also where you can do what's called a switchback, which has like a 30% chance, but that only applies in a couple situations. And to get a 124 phase 2, which I talked about earlier is what you need for a sub 2, he needs to never delay. Every single coin flip needs to go in your direction. There's a whole bunch of them. Any delay, it means you can't get sub 2. And there is kind of an exception to that. If you get one very short delay, you see right here on this little graphic that Pap made, shoutouts to Pap, if you get a half-second delay here, you can potentially still get sub 2 if you get amazing phase 3 luck, and I'll get into the phase 3 luck later. But it's very unlikely to get sub 2 this way, so I'm kind of just ignoring it. So for all intents and purposes, you need to get no delays through phases 1 and 2 to have any chance at a sub 2. And the odds in that happening is 1 in 1,600. So that is not very nice. And then you have to keep in mind all the frame perfect uppercuts you have to hit and all the dodging and ducking you have to do. And that's why a 124 phase 2 is insanely rare. Phase 3 RNG. So all that RNG I just talked about here, the 1 in 1,600 stuff, that was just for phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 also has RNG, and it's pretty bad. Tyson has 20 different phase 3 patterns that he can do. It's a little too much. Explaining exactly what everything means in the pattern column here is a little too much. You got switchback, double switchback, fastest. Don't need to worry about that. The point is, there's a whole bunch of different things Tyson can do. If he gives you the perfect pattern, you lose 0 frames. Gives you the worst pattern, you lose 49 frames. The TAS, of course, loses 0 frames. You want to lose as close to 0 frames as you can, but it's totally up to luck what pattern you get. So my goal is I want to make it to if I want to get a sub 2, you want to make it to phase 3 on a low 124, then play perfectly in phase 3 and lose no more than 16 frames. That was what I was shooting for the sub 2. You can see right here, 16 frames lost. That's only about a 17% chance of happening, 16 frames or fewer. So that's pretty unlikely. So that's after the 1 in 1,600. You still need to get really lucky and then also hit all the hooks. It's brutal. It's really tough. Odds of the whole fight, something like 1 in 10,000. It's hard to calculate exactly because there's a couple things Tyson can do that we actually don't know the exact odds of. Most things we do. There's one part in phase 1 though where it's kind of like input dependent. So yeah, 1 in 10,000 to get a sub 2 with my level of execution. If you play better than me, then the odds go up a bit, but it's still going to be very, very unlikely. All right, the phase 3 uppercut. So you guys have probably heard me talk about phase 3 uppercuts before. What is a phase 3 uppercut? Well, if you remember before, I was saying there's 9 frame perfect uppercuts in phase 1, 5 in phase 2, then 1 in phase 3, followed by 6 hooks. That one uppercut is called the phase 3 uppercut, and for years it was like this infamous thing that nobody had ever achieved. If you knock Tyson down twice by a minute 25, he'll throw one uppercut to start phase 3 before switching the hooks at 130, because that's when his pattern switches. So if you knock him down early enough, he has time to throw just one uppercut before a minute 30. And the reason that's important is because you can deal more damage to Tyson when he throws an uppercut than when he throws hooks. So if you want to get a time under 205, like a sub 2, or even a 201, 202, 203, you have to get a phase 3 uppercut, which means you have to have the second knockdown by 205. Now, until 2018, this had never been done before. Matt Turk never did it. Matt Turk was never close to doing it. Sinister, Zallard, myself, none of us had ever done it until 2018. And then after you get the phase 3 uppercut, you still need to hit 6 frame-perfect punches to finish the fight. Those are the 6 hooks. Now, 8 people ever have gotten a phase 3 uppercut. Only 2 of them have finished the fight. And the next line is a little misleading, and I'll explain what it means. Funkmeister, he's the second place runner in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. He has completed 1 phase 3 uppercut fight. It was a 202. And I have completed 138 of them. Now, that does not mean, oh, I'm 138 times better at the game than Funk. It's nothing to do, well, I won't say nothing to do with that, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have grinded Tyson way more than anyone else on Earth. That's a big part of the reason why I have 138. Funk has 1 and no one else has any. But a little bit of that, of course, has to do with like really tight dodging and ducking, hitting the frame perfects, and that sort of thing. So as time goes on, more people are going to finish these phase 3 uppercut fights, I have no doubt. Like probably by the end of the year, I think at least 1 or 2 more people will have done it. And if anyone wants to get sub 2, I don't know if it'll take 138 phase 3 uppercut finishes like it did for me. We'll see. But yeah, time will tell. The hardest part of this whole fight is phase 3, and it's not just because of the execution, but it's because of the nerves that you have. If you're down sub 2 pace, that means you got a low 124 phase 2, and we already established earlier that's a 1 in 1600 pattern. Now, I was doing Tyson like every single day for like an hour and a half a day, and that means that on average, with like my level of execution messing things up, I saw one of these low 124s about once every 3 weeks. So you have to keep in mind, whenever I got a low 124, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, if I screw this up, I, on average, will not see this, will not even get a chance at it again for 3 weeks, which is insane. Now, that's obviously just an average. So there was 1 week, I think back in like September, when I got 3 low 124s in a week. That was crazy. But right after that, I went 3 months without seeing another one. So you just never know what it's going to be. Like, if you get a low 124 and mess it up, you don't know. It could literally be 3 months till you see another one. But on average, it's about a 3 week sort of thing. So, how do you stay calm when you know that if you mess this up, well, this is it. You're not going to get a chance for a long time. And I had some strategies to try and stay calm as best I could. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's so hard, dude. This is like the hardest thing I'd ever done in speedrunning, is getting a low 124 and trying to stay calm. And the execution you have to do is hard. I'll show you right here what goes into it. You have the frame perfect uppercut, so here's that. Frame perfect uppercut. Then you have to do this buffer to hit the first hook. The first frame perfect hook, you have a buffer, so it's not too hard. And then after that, you just have to manually hit 5 frame perfect hooks. You have a 60th of a second, all the nerves in the world, good luck. Don't miss. If you miss, it's 3 weeks. And that's that. So that's what phase 3 looks like. There we go. Okay, how are these fights timed? You guys might have noticed the timer right here, it only says 159. It says nothing at all about like a decimal or a 0.61, a 0.82. It doesn't say anything about that. How does it work? So most fights in this game, they have the increments 0.00, 25, 48, all the way up to 0.99 that you can see. Now, the Tyson fight doesn't display those. Usually the way it works is after the fight, it'll tell you what decimals you got, but Tyson doesn't do that. So luckily, a guy named OmniGamer made a tool called a Tyson Finder. The way the Tyson Finder works is you record your gameplay in very high quality, ideally 60 frames per second, then you enter in some data about what frame you started on, what pattern you got, what frame you ended on, that sort of thing, and it'll spit out a frame, and it'll tell you exactly what frame you ended the fight on. So you can see in the right column here, this is the decimal that you got, 0.25, and the exact frame, so you know, okay, it was the 4th frame of the 0.25 increment. Now, the Tyson Finder is pretty reliable, but the only way it's totally reliable is if you're recording at the exact frame rate of the NES, which is like 60.09, whatever. And it's actually really hard to get a recording setup that does that. But one workaround that very fortunately works is using a VHS tape. Because the way VHS works is that it captures every single frame that's spit out to it, and then it plays it back at, I think, 59.94 frames per second, or it's like 29.97 interlace. You can de-interlace it to 59.94. So technically it's going to play back the fight in slightly slow motion, but every single frame is there. So you can enter in the frame data into the Tyson Finder, and it'll tell you the exact decimal with 100% certainty. Whereas if you recorded from like a normal capture card at 60 frames per second, it can't tell you for sure what frame you got. It only narrows it down to 2 frames. So yeah, that's why I record on VHS. Also the fact that I love it. I like having a physical copy of the world record. Like, that's pretty cool. All right, so time for the world record history portion of the video. I am planning on making like a full Mike Tyson record history probably later this year, maybe early next year. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys a little history of my personal quest for the sub 2. So I would say this started in July 2020 when I set a world record of 2 minutes flat, 0.97. That was the first ever sub 201 on Tyson, first ever two-minute fight, and I was officially 1 second away from sub 2. And right around the time that I got this fight, I think like a couple days before, I started stat keeping on the right. I didn't keep track of every attempt, like just an attempt counter, but what I did keep track of was how many times I made it past phase 1, and then how many times I made it past phase 2. So like a 52, 53, those are for phase 1, and then 124, 125, those are for phase 2. So it all began July 2020, and I decided like, okay, we're going to make a push for sub 2, let's do this thing. My first goal, though, was let's get a lower 2-minute flat fight, because it was 2 minutes flat, 0.97, so there was a little bit of wiggle room there before sub 2. 159 was like a long shot goal, like maybe I could get it, but my ultimate goal, my main goal was lower 2 flat, one day get a 159. So over the next year, I got a whole bunch of phase 3 uppercuts, like a whole bunch of 201s mainly is what I got. You can see on the right here. 7 201s, couple 2 flats, and a 202. But none of them were fast enough for a new record. Nothing under 2 flat, 0.97. Finally, July 2021, which as you recall is a year after I started keeping track, I finally got an improvement, and it was by literally 1 frame. So kind of underwhelming, but it's like, okay, finally I got like some improvement. Good enough. Let's keep going, pushing for the sub 2. Well, throughout 2021 and 2022, I played a ton of Tyson. By the end of 2022, I was up to 72 phase 3 uppercuts, dude. That's like a crazy number. I was playing a ton, and I was getting a lot better at Tyson. Despite all those uppercuts, all these finished fights down here, including a few 2 flats, none of them were faster than 2 flat 97. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. Like, I had a couple 2 flat 99s, but nothing under 0.97. It was just ridiculous. Like, I could tell I was getting really unlucky, and I was getting pretty frustrated, and I kept, like, I'd do some Tyson, then I'd do some single segment, I'd do some other categories, come back to Tyson, that sort of thing. But, yeah, for, like, the whole year and a half through the end of 2022, I just could not get anything on Tyson. No new records. Finally, in October 2023, I got a breakthrough. I got a 2 flat 0.61. Actually, like a substantial improvement. It wasn't just the next decimal lower. It was 2 decimals lower, 2 flat 61. So what was notable about that fight, though, was I was on sub 2 pace until phase 3. If he had given me a good phase 3 pattern, that fight would have been sub 2. It's pretty rare, though, to get a good phase 3 pattern, so it wasn't good enough. Too many delays. Ended up being a 2 flat 61. And it was kind of at this moment that I was like, okay, I barely even care about a lower 2-minute fight now. Let's just go for the sub 2. This was the most motivated I'd ever been since I got the 2 flat 97 in July of 2020. So I began this really heavy grind for the sub 2. This was the most I had played. You can see in the past 3 years, all of these blue dots are finished phase 3 uppercut fights. This one was the first record, the 2 flat 97. And then these were like random 201s. There's a 202. I think that one right there, that like little one to the right, was the lower 2 flat 97, and then this was the 2 flat 61. Immediately after that, I got all these finished phase 3 uppercut fights. I literally finished exactly as many fights in these 3 months as I had the previous 3 years. But despite all that, well, I guess I'm not there yet, this is the best I had ever played too. My phase 3 execution was just getting better and better. I said before, phase 3 is the hardest part of the fight, and when I was first like here, I would say, this was where my phase 3 consistency was. I was at about 37%, which is not bad given the nerves you have and everything. But during this part of the grind, where I was getting finished fight after finished fight, you could see it. Like, I brought up the consistency quite a bit. I was hitting them a lot more than I was missing the perfect phase 3s. So over the course of a few months, I brought it up to 47%. Yet, despite everything, despite I was playing like every single day for 3 months, I just could not beat 2 flat 61. I mean, I got 4 more 2 flats, 15 more 201s, 11 more 202s. He was never giving me the luck that I needed to get the 2 flat 61, despite I was playing better than I ever had before. So I was kind of disillusioned with it. I needed a break. I had been going for this for 3.5 years, and I still hadn't gotten anything good. So I stopped. Then, 6 months later, and I'm guessing some of you guys watching this were here to see this live because I streamed it, out of nowhere, I got a new Tyson record of 2 minutes flat .00. This is the end of the fight. I forgot you guys can't hear audio, my bad. I said get out of my face, man, after a long pause. The long pause is because I was really not expecting this record at all. I mean, go back and look at this. I had been playing so much right here. So much. Got nothing. Took a break for 6 months, a random one-off Tyson session, and I get a huge new record. I mean, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. This fight was just 3 frames away from sub 2. 2 flat .00 on the 3rd frame of the increment. All I needed was a slightly better phase 3 pattern, and this would have been sub 2. It was like teasing me almost, because like I felt like now I had to go for sub 2 because I was so close, but also the only difference between this and my last record was just getting luckier in phase 3. So was I actually any closer? I don't know. But I decided now I was so close, and I'd been going for this for so many years. I just wanted to go all out until I got sub 2. I decided I had never grinded anything in this game for longer than like 4 months at a time, but I decided like I don't care. I'm going to do this until I get it. I don't care if it takes years, I'm just doing it. Because sub 2 I knew was going to be the biggest milestone in Punch-Out history. Like even bigger than the sub 15 single segment run, like sub 2 is the biggest thing ever. And I really wanted to be the first person to do it given how many perfect fights I'd had already. I felt like I had to be the one to do it, man. So I didn't know how long it would take. I could have gotten it the next day, or it could have taken years. I had no clue. I am not grinding anything else till I get sub 2. Like I made that commitment. So I played Tyson. This was starting in June of 2024. I played Tyson every single day that I could for months on end. If I was on vacation, then I didn't play then. Other than that, I would say I took a day off maybe every 10 days or so. Maybe 10 days every 2 weeks I took a day off. Other than that, I was playing every single day. Sometimes multiple times a day. Notably, we'll come back to this later, I used a couple more ducks. Because remember, ducking saves a frame over dodging. And I decided to implement a couple more ducks in to try and save a couple more frames. Because I was looking at the timing and everything, and I determined that every last frame was probably going to count when it came to the sub 2. So I decided to just go for as many ducks as I reasonably could. Ultimately, I finished so many fights that I started playing Tyson Scorigami. So if you guys don't know what Tyson Scorigami is, or Scorigami in general, Scorigami is made by someone named John Boyes, one of my favorite YouTubers. And it's essentially it comes from football, American football, and any score that has never happened before, any final score, is called a scorigami if it has never occurred in the history of the NFL before. So like, I don't know, what's a weird score? 36-23 I think is the one that's like really weird that hasn't happened yet. 36-23 is considered a scorigami because it's never happened before. So that's kind of what I started doing here with Tyson, where it's just I made a board and I filled out every single frame that I had hit before from a finished fight. So you could actually see for 201, I'd gotten so many 201s that I literally filled out the entire column. I've gotten every frame of a 201 before. I got 203 one time. This was before July 2020, so that's why it's not on the counter. And then 202, I've gotten most of those frames. I've never gotten to .82, interestingly enough. And then I got a handful of these 2-minute flat fights too, but there's quite a few gaps still. I tried to play at least an hour and a half every single day. That's equivalent to about 150 attempts on Tyson. More if I could. I generally didn't like to play for more than an hour and a half any given session, but sometimes I did 2 sessions in a day. And it led to just so many finished fights, dude. Like, this was the record, the 2 flat .00 in June 2024. And like, this just wall of finished fights. Like, I was getting one every few days. Most of them were 201s and 202s. But every now and then I would get a 2 flat. And some of these were very, very interesting, the 2 flats. June 15th, 2024. This is just 13 days after the 2 flat .00. I had a run that made it all the way to phase 3, and I lost the last coin flip of RNG, so it finished as a 2 flat .25. It would have been a sub 2 had that coin flip gone the other way, and I would have been done in June. Pretty crazy. August 2nd, I had a run that tied the world record to the frame, but my dodging and ducking was actually a little bit slow. This is before I committed to doing the extra ducks. This is kind of the fight that made me want to do the extra ducks. I tied the record to the frame with a pattern that probably should have been sub 2. January 10th, 2025, I missed the world record by just 1 frame. If I'd gotten 1 fewer delay in phase 3, then it would have been sub 2 by quite a bit, I think. Instead, it was off the world record by 1 frame. And then January 21st, I made it to phase 3, and I'd gotten Tyson to the point where I had a 25% or a 75% chance at world record. The only thing I had to avoid was essentially losing 2 coin flips in a row. And of course, that's exactly what happened. And I lost both coin flips, and the run died. And it was really tragic, and that really pissed me off. So it was 8 months of daily grinding. Every single day that I could possibly play. No sub 2s. I didn't know how long it could take, because it had been 8 months and I hadn't gotten it. So it just as easily could have been 8 more months without getting it. But then February 8th, 2025 happened. And we'll just watch the fight here, so you guys can see the things that you've learned from the presentation so far. So the dodging and ducking is very good. Most of these are frame perfect. Whole bunch of ducks. It's a nice low 52. You can see the timer. So already right here, I'm already a little nervous because low 52s are pretty rare, but I'm not like super nervous yet. Phase 2, same thing, no delays. Dodging and ducking's a little slower here. Playing it a little safer. And then look how low of a 124 that is. So I knew, like, okay, this is sub 2 pace. This is it, dude. Might not see this again for weeks. Let's focus up. That's 1 hook, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there it is, dude. The timer was so close to ticking over to 2 flat. But that was it, dude. That was 8 months of grinding and 4.5 years of off and on playing, trying for sub 2. Let's learn a little bit more. So, the fight itself, I got the perfect phase 1 and phase 2 luck. That was 1 in 1600. And then the phase 3 luck that I got was good. It was about a 17% chance of happening, 1 in approximately 5.6. And then I hit all the hooks in phase 3, dude. I did what I needed to do. Ended up being sub 2 by only 2 frames. You can see here, it was 0.97 on the last frame of the increment. And remember, I said earlier, back in August, I committed to doing 2 extra ducks that I wasn't doing before. Had I not, and I ended up doing these 2 ducks frame perfectly in the run. So had I not done those ducks, I would have lost 2 frames. And the time would have gone from 159.97 to 2 flat .00. So thank God I made the decision to start doing more ducks. Like, it may have cost me some runs that I ended up getting either like knocked down on or whatever, but yeah, it is a really good thing I did those extra ducks, because otherwise this sub 2 would not have happened. So, one interesting thing, and I guess I should probably go back and turn up the volume so you guys can hear it, is you listen to my reaction when I got the sub 2.
Website.
It's maybe not what you'd expect for something
like, they're
I've been
okay with you
for 4.5 years. It's over.
I thought I'd be a lot more excited about this.
Holy shit, dude. So, like, I don't sound that excited. Like, I literally say I thought I'd be a lot more excited than this. Like, pretty weird. And I've had some pretty big pop-offs before. So, why was I not more excited? Two reasons I can come up with. I'm still not entirely sure why, but these are the two things I could figure out. One is the only reason I was doing Tyson that day was because I was kind of having a rough day. Just long story, I don't need to go into why, but I was kind of anxious, and the whole reason I booted up Tyson on my like a Twitch stream to do it with people watching was so that I could get my mind off of things and just kind of distract myself, talk to chat, do Tyson. I was just kind of subdued and mellow. And I'll tell you, the sub 2 was like the last thing on my mind. I wasn't like, all right, might as well do Tyson to see if I get the record and cheer me up. I was doing it because I was just like, well, I don't know what to do. Let's do some Tyson. Usually that's distracting. So already I was in this really subdued and mellow mood, where I was just kind of like, yeah, just going through the motions, whatever. The second reason is I intentionally tried to stay as calm as I could during the fight. Because remember, I said before, low 124s, they're so rare, dude. Once every 3 weeks. And if I messed one up, it could be months till I get another shot. I've had that happen before, where I messed it up and I didn't get another chance for months. I also had this habit on Tyson where I would rush hooks if I got a low 124 because I was like anxious and excited. Like, oh my god, low 124, go, go, go. But if you throw a frame perfect hook one frame too early, then that messes up the whole fight. So I ended up really, really working hard to stay calm whenever I got a low 124. I actually had this mantra that I like told myself out loud. You could hear me say it on the stream. Website is the thing. Let's see here. All right, don't get excited and get in the rhythm. Don't get excited and get in the rhythm. So the get in the rhythm part is it's easier to hit Tyson hooks when you're in the rhythm with them. So I remind myself, like, just try to get in the rhythm. That's it makes it easier to hit them. But don't get excited is me telling myself, don't get anxious and rush the first hook. And in order to not get anxious, I just have to kind of tell myself, like, don't care. Be subdued. Be chill. Who cares? I kind of push out my anxiousness and excitement till later. I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. This is happening right now, but who cares? Just do the thing. I try to be as subdued as possible. And what ends up happening is then when I do finish the fight, I end up being like, oh, yeah, chill, whatever. So I kind of had that reaction combined with being in shock from seeing 159. And instead I was just like, I can't say anything. I'm like paralyzed. I can't even talk. So what ended up happening was after I got the fight, if you were watching me stream, you kind of heard I got more excited as time went on. I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And that kept building up even after I stopped the stream, like over the next few hours. The remainder of that night, I just got more and more excited. And for those of you who speedrun, you're probably familiar with a concept called the speedrunner's high. And that's whenever you set like a PB that you've been working towards for a really long time, like you were just like so elated for some period of time afterwards. Like when I set like a record in Punch Out, I like for a couple days afterwards, I'm just like thinking about it every, so often, and it just like smiles when I think about it. Like it's awesome, dude. And then obviously it wears off after a little while. But in general, like the more significant of the PB that you get, the longer the high lasts. That's how it feels for me. This is the longest speedrunner's high I have ever felt. Despite how subdued I seemed to be when I got the fight, I have never felt this like relieved and happy after a record ever. Like I'm still feeling it, dude. I still have the speedrunner's high. It's not as much as it was a couple days ago, but it's still pretty nuts. Like usually I'm completely over it by now, but I'm just like, dude, I got sub 2. It's over. I don't have to do that ever again. So yeah, it's still going on. How many attempts did this take me? It's just something that people ask me a lot. It's hard to calculate for sure because I wasn't doing an attempt counter the whole time. I was keeping track of how many times I made it past phase 1 and phase 2. But I can kind of do an estimation because I would say on average, I got like a 52 or a 53 phase 1 like 3 times an hour. I'd say that was about average. And then on average, I do about 100 Tyson attempts per hour. So based off of that, I would say from the time that I got the 2 flat 97 here until I stopped for a while, that was about 30,000 attempts. And during all those 30,000 attempts, the record was just 2 flat 97. Then I had this really mad, furious grind late last or 2 years ago after I got the 2 flat 61, and that was probably about another 10,000 attempts. And then finally, I did another 35,000 attempts over the last 8 months after I got the 2 flat .00, making the final push for sub 2. So all in all, I would say it was about 75,000 attempts since I started going for sub 2 in July 2020. If you want to go lifetime, though, that's a really hard thing to estimate. It's probably over 100,000 attempts. I'm guessing somewhere between 100,000 and 130,000 because every attempt is so quick. Like, the average Tyson attempt lasts, like, not long at all, like under half a minute. You have to put in the password, but that doesn't take long. Okay, this is another thing people ask about. The TAS for Mike Tyson versus this world record. So the TAS is a 158.61 on the first frame of the increment. The world record is 159.97 on the third frame of the increment. So that's a 29 frame difference. Okay? Where does the time come from? So 16 of those frames are from the slower phase 3 pattern that I got. I did not get the TAS phase 3 pattern because it's super rare and super unlikely. So that's where 16 of the frames come from, more than half of them. 6 frames come from me not dodging and ducking perfectly. 2 in phase 1 and 4 in phase 2. 6 frames is pretty good. I've done a little better than this before, but this is, I would say, like 1 frame faster than I was hoping for. So 6 frames lost over 16 uppercuts is pretty good. And then 7 frames come from the fact that I did fewer ducks than the TAS. The TAS does, I guess it's 6. Is it 6? Yeah, I think 6 more ducks than I do, and then I do the buffer for one of my dodges that bleeds an extra frame. So basically, if I was doing all the ducks everywhere like the TAS did, I could potentially save 7 more frames. So that's where the 29 frames come from. It's essentially like 16 frames from luck, and then 13 from playing faster. What will the next world record look like on Tyson? So this is where I kind of just have to do some guesswork. Can't know for sure, but I think the next record on Tyson will probably have somewhat similar execution to me. Now, is it possible that someone could go all out and save like all 13 frames by ducking all over? I mean, sure, you can. There's no reason you can't. It's just really, really hard. The margin for error is super tiny. And I did play pretty darn well on this fight. I could have gone a little faster, but 6 frames lost is pretty good from dodging and ducking. So I'm just going to assume that the next record will have similar execution to me. I'm going to also guess that it'll have the same TAS phase 1 and phase 2 pattern. That's not guaranteed, but it's probably true. So then the way the record will be improved, if phase 1 and phase 2 and the execution are the same, it's going to be getting better luck in phase 3. And that's pretty much all it's going to come down to. If they get better luck than me, then they could beat my record. If they get like a little better luck, it'll probably be a 159.82. If they get, a decent bit better, maybe a 0.61. And then if they get the TAS pattern in phase 3, it'll be a 159.00 or 0.25, depending on how their execution is. So probably matching me and then getting luckier at the end is the solution to beating it, getting a lower 159. Now, everyone also asks, is a 158 possible? Is 159 the end of the road? So TAS gets 158.61. We already know that. So to still get a 158, you can only lose 10 frames versus that TAS. And keep in mind, I lost 29 in my record. So without question, you need to get the TAS pattern. There's like no way around that. The first, I guess like the smallest amount you can lose while not getting the TAS pattern is 8 frames. So then you'd only have 2 frames of wiggle room on your execution. Like, I do not see that as being likely. I think if you're getting a 158, you have to get the TAS pattern, which is 1 in 150,000. So 1 in 150,000 luck. And then on top of that, you need to play at least 3 frames better than I did in my current record. And the way you'd play 3 frames better is you'd have to either add in more ducks or just have almost no room for error on your dodging and ducking. It is possible. I mean, I think someone could definitely get good enough to do that, but it is really, really hard. And then when you factor that in with a 1 in 150,000 thing, which is probably a lot more significant than the execution, I think it's never going to happen without RNG manipulation. I don't see it. The only way I could see it happening is if the Tyson record suddenly gets way more popular and then a whole bunch of different people, like 10 people at once, are going for it and they're all playing every day. then maybe one of them could fluke the task pattern and get so good at dodging and ducking. But I don't know. I think like a lower 159 is the end of the road unless we start doing RNG minip. That's my opinion, but maybe I'll be wrong. Special thanks. So, the entire Mike Tyson's Punch-Out community, I know a lot of you showed up for this, so that was cool. Thank you guys. I mean, you guys keep me motivated seeing what you guys do. It's pretty awesome. You guys made me want to get the sub too, because it was like, okay, you guys are clearly going to get good enough to do this soon, so I want to get this first. So thank you guys for your motivation, and please keep going with the game because it's really fun to see you guys progress. And then two people I want to especially shout out are Zallard1 and Dave P. So Zallard1, he was the last person to hold the Tyson record before me. And the Tyson record and the single segment record, actually. He had both of those before I took over. And over the last, 10 years since I've been running the game, or I guess 9 years, he has been, the most supportive guy. Every single time I get a record, he, tweets out about it. It's like, oh, go congratulate Salt on this awesome record. Just every single time, he's, there to promote it and shows up to say congrats. It's really cool. I love that he does that, and that he's still around all these years later, still supporting us. So I think that's really cool. So shout outs to Zallard. And then Dave P. I think Dave P is the only person who has gone through a similar grind to what I just did in this game. In 2020, and I think even before that, Dave P went for the Dawn 2 world record, and he got a fight that was 109.97, and it had luck of 1 in 93,000. Now, it's not like he just did a few hundred attempts and happened to get that luck. He said that he played an average of 4 hours every single day after work for over a year to get 1 in 93,000 luck. That's even crazier than what I got. All the execution's a little bit different on Dawn 2. But yeah, Dave P, it's the only Punch-Out record from anywhere near that long ago that's still standing. You can go to speedrun.com and look at it. 109.97 by Dave P for Dawn 2. It is insane. So yeah, it's gonna be 5 years old this year. Pretty nuts for a Punch-Out record. And then of course, thanks to all of you for keeping me company. I streamed a lot of Tyson, and you guys were there to show up and keep me sane, because this grind is incredible on your mind. You're bashing your head against the wall for hours every single day, just resetting due to luck. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, shout outs to all of you guys for being here. Thank you. One more slide. My future plans with Mike Tyson. So I think this is it for me, for Mike Tyson. You could see that in 2016, that's when I first got the Tyson record. It was a 206.25, which now I can get pretty much on command pretty quickly. But that was a pretty big deal back then. And then you could see just I've slowly whittled it down over the years, taking a little more time off of it. And then you can see right here, it's the sub 2 grind began, and we took it all the way down just under 2 minutes. It's been a really long journey, but honestly, if the record was about playing better, I would be a lot more inclined to do it. But like I'm saying, the future improvements are just going to be about getting better luck. It's like winning a lottery is kind of all it is. When you're doing Tyson IL attempts at this level, you're pretty much just duplicating your execution over and over and over and waiting for the luck. And I was okay to do that to try to get sub 2, because sub 2 is such an insane milestone. But I don't care to do that just to get a lower 159, you know? It's all going to be about just making it back to phase 3 and then getting better luck. Which it's I don't know, it's not really fulfilling, dude. I've already proven that I can do what I can do, and I got the sub 2, and that's what I really care about. And just, I think future records kind of have diminishing returns. Even 158, I don't think is quite going to have, as insane as it would be, I feel 159 is still the milestone, because it's a minute barrier. So I think I'm done with Tyson. I don't really want to compete with others just to get see who gets better luck on Tyson. So I think I'm done. But I'm not done with the game totally. I'm still planning to lower the single segment record probably one more time before kind of the same thing with that category, where I'm it's just competing to see who gets better luck. So I think I want to get one more single segment record, hopefully get a low 14.4x, maybe a 14.3x. I think that record is probably weaker than the Tyson record, so I'd like to improve it a little bit more if I can, and then I'm probably going to be done with that too, and just be done with the game entirely. So, yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys very much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys learned about the fight, about the history a little bit. I hope